Every few weeks, someone on the internet has what they think is a genius idea. Why don't we just build all the data centers in Antarctica? It's basically an entire continent of free cooling. No people, no water bills, no overheating. Done. And I get it, because the problem these people are reacting to is very real. AI data centers consumed nearly 264 billion gallons of water in 2025 alone. That's roughly the same daily rate as the entire global bottled water industry. Just to keep servers cool, Google's single largest data center in Iowa withdraws close to 4 million gallons of water per day. And communities near these facilities, communities that never voted for this, are watching their water tables drop. So the frustration is completely legitimate. The solution, though, not quite. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Antarctica doesn't work. And, more interestingly, what actually does. Let's get into it. Before we go south, you need to understand what a data center actually requires to function. Because put it somewhere cold sounds simple until you look at the full list. 1. Stable operating temperature. The chips inside a data center run between 60 and 80 degrees Celsius, and the engineering challenge is pulling that heat away without overcooling the surrounding environment. The server room environment needs to be kept around 18 degrees Celsius because that temperature prevents condensation and keeps airflow predictable. In Antarctica, at negative 45 degrees Celsius, you're not getting free cooling. You're getting frozen moisture on equipment, metal contracting and cracking in the cold, and a facility you'd actually have to heat just to keep operational. So you're basically trading one problem with another harder one. 2. High bandwidth connectivity. Every query, every AI output, every file has to travel through fiber optic cables at the speed of light. Antarctica is the only continent on Earth with 0 undersea fiber optic connections. Everything in and out currently goes through slow, expensive, limited satellite links. A large data center needs bandwidth measured in terabits per second. The best Antarctica has managed recently is 120 megabits for an entire research station. That's roughly 8 million times too slow. 3. Reliable power. Antarctica gets almost no usable sunlight for half the year, and there is no power grid. You'd be building generation infrastructure from scratch at the bottom of the world, in conditions where almost nothing works the way it should. 4. Physical accessibility. Servers break, GPUs fail constantly. Meta logged 466 hardware failures across 16,384 GPUs in just 54 days of training one model. Someone needs to be able to walk in and fix things quickly, whereas Antarctica is accessible by a very limited number of research flights per year, in a place where logistics are so difficult that data is currently transferred by people carrying hard drives onto planes. 5. Legal permission. The Antarctic Treaty, ratified by 58 nations, dedicates the entire continent to peaceful scientific research and bans commercial activity. There is no legal path to building a commercial data center there, and that ban can't even be reviewed until 2048. Antarctica doesn't just fail one of these, it fails all 5. Let's spend a bit more time on the temperature issue, because this is where most people's intuition breaks down. The logic seems airtight. Antarctica is cold, servers get hot, problem solved. But cold air and useful cold air are two very different things. The goal isn't to make the air cold, it's to remove heat from the chips efficiently. In cold Nordic regions like northern Norway, Iceland, or Sweden, data centers can simply draw in outside air at around 5 to 15 degrees Celsius, pass it over the servers, and exhaust the heated air outside. This technique, called free air cooling, works extremely well, which is why companies like Meta and Google operate data centers there, achieving some of the best energy efficiency numbers in the industry. But at minus 45 degrees Celsius, Antarctica's average temperature, not even its extreme, you've crossed into a completely different engineering problem. Moisture freezes on equipment, while extreme temperature differences cause metal to expand and contract, enough to crack solder joints and damage connectors. The dry polar air also generates far more static electricity, which can kill sensitive electronics. And to keep the facility at a stable 18 degrees Celsius, where servers operate reliably and condensation is avoided, you'd actually need to run heaters constantly, burning energy to fight the environment instead of benefiting from it. There's also a solar power problem. Antarctica gets almost no usable sunlight for half the year. During polar winter, it's dark for months. And even in summer, the sun sits low on the horizon. Solar panels would be so inefficient they'd barely be worth installing. The penguins would probably use them as slides. There's a window where cold climate helps. Antarctica is so far past that window that it creates more problems than it solves. Antarctica is the only continent on Earth not connected by a single undersea fiber optic cable. Every other continent, Africa, South America, Australia, all of them, is stitched into the global internet through cables on the ocean floor. Antarctica? Nothing. It relies entirely on satellite links, which are slow, expensive, and limited in bandwidth. Now, there are proposals. As of late 2024, the U.S. National Science Foundation published a feasibility study for a cable from McMurdo Station to New Zealand. Chile has a similar project in early study phases. But these are scientific projects, underfunded, years from completion, and designed to give researchers better connectivity, not to serve global AI infrastructure traffic. But what about Starlink? I know you're thinking it. Here's the problem. Polar coverage is the weakest part of Starlink's network. Fewer satellites orbit at high latitudes, so capacity is thin. Antarctica has no ground relay stations. The British Antarctic Survey recently celebrated getting 120 megabits per second connectivity at their Rothera research station through a custom satellite solution, which is a genuine achievement for a remote science outpost and completely inadequate for a commercial data center handling millions of requests per second. A large hyperscale data center needs bandwidth measured in terabits per second. 120 megabits per second is roughly 8 million times less than that. Even if you somehow solved temperature and connectivity, there's a wall you cannot climb: the Antarctic Treaty. Signed in 1959 by 12 nations, now ratified by 58 countries, the treaty dedicates the entire continent to peaceful purposes and scientific research. It bans military activity, nuclear testing, and radioactive waste disposal. A 1991 environmental protocol added a moratorium on all commercial resource extraction, a ban that cannot even be reviewed until 2048. Building a commercial data center on Antarctica would violate this treaty, which nearly every major nation on Earth has signed. There's no legal path forward. And even if there were, who fixes the servers? Remember that Meta failure stat: hundreds of GPU failures over 54 days in a controlled data center environment where a technician can fix things immediately. Now put those servers at the bottom of the world, accessible only by a limited number of annual research flights, in a place where the logistics of getting anything there are enormously expensive. Here's what doesn't get talked about enough. The idea behind Antarctica data centers, using cold environments to reduce cooling costs, is actually a good idea. It's just that people are pointing at the wrong place. The Arctic is already working. Right now, as you watch this, Meta has a data center in Luleå, Sweden, near the Arctic Circle, that uses sub-zero outside air for most of its cooling and runs with a power usage effectiveness, essentially efficiency, of around 1.07. Industry average is closer to 1.5. Meta's facility is one of the most energy-efficient large-scale data centers on the planet. Google operates a data center in Hamina, Finland, inside a former paper mill, cooled by seawater piped in from the Gulf of Finland. In Norway, the Green Mountain facility is built inside a former NATO ammunition bunker, cooled by water drawn from a fjord at 8 degrees Celsius. Southern Finland alone offers around 8,000 hours of free air cooling per year. The Nordic data center market hit 1.32 gigawatts of capacity in 2025 and is projected to nearly double by 2031. Microsoft, Amazon, and Google are all actively expanding there. And then there's Microsoft's Project Natick, a wild experiment where they literally sank a pressurized cylinder full of servers on the seafloor, off Scotland, and left it running for 2 years. The underwater servers turned out to be 8 times more reliable than equivalent servers on land, because sealed nitrogen environments have no humidity, no oxygen corrosion, and no humans bumping into things. They closed the project in 2024, not because it failed, but because the logistics of underwater maintenance didn't scale economically. But the learnings fed directly into Microsoft's data center design going forward. The point is, cold climate data centers are genuinely promising. Norway, Iceland, Sweden, Finland, these places have fiber optic connectivity, legal frameworks, renewable energy, and cold air that costs nothing. And they're where the actual investment is going. So here's where we land. Antarctica fails on every single dimension that matters. The temperature creates problems, not solutions. The internet doesn't exist there. The legal framework prohibits commercial activity. And getting anyone there to fix anything is a logistical nightmare. The idea comes from the right instinct. Data centers use too much water, too much energy, and they're disrupting communities. Those are real problems worth solving. But Antarctica is the wrong answer to a right question. The right answer already exists. It's in Norway, Iceland, Finland, and Sweden. It's in cold air, fjord water, geothermal energy, and good engineering. The companies that figured this out are already saving hundreds of millions in energy costs every year. Now here's what I want to know from you in the comments. Did you think Antarctica was a good idea before this video? And do you think the Arctic approach is actually scalable enough to meet AI's energy demand? Or are we eventually going to need something far more radical? Because in the next video, we're going to talk about the most radical option anyone has seriously proposed yet: space. And unlike Antarctica, that debate is very much alive. Subscribe so you don't miss